And we're recording. Welcome to the 6th episode of the Trove Design Podcast with Andres and Charlie Briggs. Andres Ramirez and Charlie Briggs. Today, we're actually going to talk about why we decided to do a video podcast versus an audio podcast and some of the backstory there, as well as some of the pros and cons of each type of podcast. So, without further ado, let's get started. And Andres, I would love to hear from you since you actually had the initial idea to start a video podcast. Why did we start doing this crazy thing, the Trove Design Podcast?
I love that question. Can you give it an applause?
Oh,
thank you for a great intro. So, one night, and it goes with one of these times where it was in the middle of the night, and I just got this idea. I'm like, what if I did a video podcast with somebody that I know and somebody that's like super chill and also has wealth of knowledge and just an overall a great person. And I thought of you instantly, and after that I was like, well, this would be great because one of the things that I really enjoy watching on the internet is video podcasts. So for an example, I love watching Joe Rogan at times. There's some things I don't agree with, and there's some stuff that I'm like, oh, that's very mind-bending, and or like I never thought of it that way. Like for example, some of the UFO stuff that he talks about, like that always kind of spooky in a way. But anyways, and there's so many examples of that if you go on YouTube, and I've watched a lot of some of these people like do podcasts. Like Chris Doe's obviously one that you go on the channel, you saw that he's been interviewing some people, and they do some workshops live and stuff like that. So it is kind of like a video podcast, and you can watch it passively. And I've also seen people just take like snippets of that and put it as shorts. So you kind of hit all the boxes. You can hit the video and the audio and shorts, all that kind of stuff. So for me, it's always been something I've always wanted to do. But the one thing that scares me, and well, I shouldn't say it scares me, it's just I don't have the, what is it called? The exercise or the muscles to do it on my own. And so that's when I think partnership can happen, because you can have a co-host, or the other host, I should say, with Charles, and then we can have a dynamic conversation, because I find that when you have a conversation with somebody, it sounds better than you just scripting something and then trying to say that to the world. And that's been my personal experience on that. And so, Charles, going back to you, why did you agree to this funny journey that I put you on?
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, for our viewers, Andres and I have been meeting for a while now, once, twice a week, talking through different ideas that we have and just really getting to know each other and to grow our friendship, both personally and professionally. And so Andres actually approached me with this idea of, okay, hey, maybe we should start a podcast together, which I feel like is the modern day equivalent of, I don't know about you, Andres, but back in the day when I was a kid, people would always say, oh, we should start a band together or do something like that. And, I would say 20% of them actually worked. And then there was a lot of, okay, you're just asking me for that. But today it's, hey, we should do a podcast together. So I was a little skeptical at first, not going to lie, but we started working together. And I think all the things that you mentioned, Andres, around just kind of that accountability aspect, I would never be able to keep the consistency or the motivation to do this on my own. But because you're doing it together as a pair, you're able to kind of split up those tasks, as well as get motivated from the other individual to actually do some podcasting. So I've thoroughly enjoyed the past 5 episodes that we're doing and the 6th one that we're recording right now. And yeah, I think one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, I mentioned in a previous episode, I believe episode 4, about setting our dreams, is my scary goal is I want to get better at public speaking. And so video podcast is a great way to do that, because you are speaking to a camera typically, but it's something where you can still get those repetitions down and be able to clearly articulate your ideas, which I'm not doing right now. So I don't know if this is working or not, but I'm having a great time. And that's kind of the genesis of how we started this podcast. And we just basically decided to put mics on an already pretty great conversation. So yeah, I would say that it's been a good time. And I also want to get into, I hit it a little bit, but why did we choose a video podcast versus an audio podcast. So when people typically think podcast, they think, oh, I'm going to listen to it in the car, or I'm just going to pop it in my ears and maybe wash some dishes. So why did you come and you said, hey, let's do video instead?
I think video for me is it's you kind of feel like you're in it. Like for an example, if you put us to the side of your browser or you're watching with us, it feels like you're part of the scene too. And I think that's the way my funny mind likes to do things. And it's like I want to be a creator to have like people being invited into the conversation. If again, I'll always put this out there as if you want to be on the podcast, we would love to have friends, colleagues, or maybe potential fans if we ever get a fan base. Who knows? Maybe in the future we get a fan base, and we would just love to have a chat with you on the show, and that way it just feels like you're part of this like virtual community, and it'd be amazing to just keep on growing it, and that's one of the reasons. Other thing too is it's I would say practicing video presence. That's another one. Like looking at the camera. Charles does this the best. I'm the one that needs to figure that part out, and so I would love to do that because I find that when on our pursuit of public speaking parts of it is almost a performance. So when you're on stage, you have to still bring the energy, look around, and being able to use your tone. And every subtle or every so often, you have to do those pauses, and those pauses come with practice. It's not like you're gonna be one day you're like, oh, we're gonna be talking and stuff like that. It's like we've got to do this every so often, so you build those muscles. So when you do go on the stage, you're ready to go. So that would be my quick answer for you there, Charles.
Yeah, I think you also mentioned, I mean, I love the community aspect that you mentioned there. I think there's a lot of individuals who work in an environment where maybe they have multiple screens or they have a large screen, and they like to pull up maybe their boring task and then have some sort of video podcast or something rolling in the background, so that way you're trying to multitask. You're listening to a podcast, but you can also kind of glance over and watch it for a little bit, take a break from the task that you're doing at hand. I love that. And I utilize that a lot as well, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do the video podcast with you. And then obviously, yeah, we have our own skills that we're trying to get better at in terms of video production. I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think it's actually just going to grow more and more and be more of a professional. You put it on your resume. In the past, it was like, I know how to use Microsoft Word, and now it's okay. I know how to do a live stream, or I know how to do these tasks that I think are going to become just more and more prevalent in business in the future. So that is a great thing. And then also a pro is we have a video that goes with the audio. So if we ever wanted to split those two up and also do just an audio version of the podcast on, one of the main podcast streaming services, then we could also do that and have the video aspect already there versus, maybe you start with the audio podcast and you have to add video over top of it. It takes a lot of time. Something, Andres, you didn't mention, I don't think, was around just the time aspect that it takes to make one of these podcasts. When we started talking, it was around, okay, let's get on mics together. Let's just kind of keep this conversation going. But we wanted to be able to do it in such a low effort way that we would continue to do it. I think that's a big thing, and something we might have talked about with some of the goal setting is making it easy enough that it's repeatable, that you'll actually show up and keep doing it to get some of those consistencies. So we've started doing the weekly podcast recording on Fridays, sending it out on Sunday. Andres and I are actually talking, and I think it'd be a great time for an announcement, is that we're going to start doing 2 episodes a week. So I believe Sunday and Wednesday, Andres, is that correct? Yeah, get that going. So we're going to be able to do 2 podcasts a week just because we love it so much, and we have all these ideas that we want to talk about and do. And so being able to have that consistency and that kind of ease of use is super key. And I think audio podcasts are really easy, but to be able to do that with video is a really good skill, really good skill.
Totally agree with that, Charles. And one thing I wanted to say really quickly, if someone out there is wondering whether or not they should do this, it's an easy yes from me. I highly encourage you to, if
Agreed.
you ever thought about doing a video podcast or even a podcast, is to just do it. And also to find an accountability partner. It took me a while, honestly. It took me a while to find Charles, but as soon as we started to meet and then we started to jive, it's like, okay, this could be something really cool one day, and it's happening now. And the other cool thing is that you, as a person out there who's watching this, have such a unique perspective on the things that you do or witness and how you do the things that you do bring that value to when you want to do something like this. Like, there is an audience for you somewhere, and it's just to start doing it and to just start posting, and you'll start to see that there's going to be people that show up for you, and that's really exciting. And the other thing too is the the software that we use is StreamYard, and I really like it because there's parts where I can just put Charles back on to screen like that at a click of a button, and I really enjoy that because it takes so much of the editing time away. Our first episode actually took us the longest because of some technical things. For example, like we had to download Zoom and then had to post that up. So if you look at our very first episode, is, as they say, it might not be the best, but we started it there, and then it's like looking for other ways to make it easier for us. So that's one last point.
That's a great point. I think the technology that we use definitely plays into it, and I love, with anything, if you want to start creating, do it. Do it today. You don't need a fancy setup or lights or a fancy microphone. You can just do it with your phone. Most people who have a smartphone can just turn on a video recording, record it, and then upload it to their favorite site, whatever that is. We chose YouTube because we're both fairly active on YouTube. But yeah, it's very low, uh, low barrier to entry. But once you start doing it, then that's when you start leveling up, right? And I've heard this across multiple things, whether you're wanting to start a business or a YouTube channel or anything, is just to start with where you're at and be okay with that, right? And realize that you will get better. And so for us, like Andre has mentioned, we started where we were at. We used the technology and the tools that we had. And every single episode, we've been adding one more element or two more elements to make it just a little bit easier, or a little bit quicker, or just a better experience for you, our listeners. So if you have any ideas, actually, you can link them in the comments below, write them down, let us know what do you think would be good to help level up this podcast, so that we can just provide better content for you. But yeah, I know we started with Zoom, we switched over to StreamYard. We can add music now. We can both bring people back onto the screen. I know we like to put each other as the main screen. So bringing each other back and doing different things like that. It's a fun time, and it's really easy. I actually had a couple people reach out to me and ask, who does your editing? Who does all of these tasks that in traditional video or audio podcasting, typically you would record, you'd have somebody post process it and then upload it to whatever site. But Andres and I do most of that on the fly. And so if it looks a little scrappy, that's probably why. I just did a little rhyme there. But yeah, I would say those are some of the good things in terms of learning. Andres, do you have anything else, or else I have one last question for us? This
Yeah,
might be a
let's go.
shorter episode.
I actually have nothing to add. I think you
Okay.
summarized it nicely, and we can get into the last one, and then
Yeah.
we'll be closing out our episode and then working on the next one.
There you go. So the last question was really, I wanted to talk about some negatives of video podcasts, which you've maybe seen. We've talked a little bit about it too earlier in this call, but I want to just talk about some of the negatives of video podcasting. So Andres, I'll let you take the first turn if you want.
Yep. So one thing that we are noticing is actually the technology sometimes will work against us. So you can tell if, depending on the time and day, your bandwidth, I'm already seeing the little connection mark on my end that it's not the best. So, and there might be some little lagginess on there, but that It's something we're working through. So shutting down all the back working programs that we have on our computers is to turn those off and to further enhance our connection at a later time. But that's the number one thing for me that pops up as that. What about you, Charles?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, just modern technology. We are in different countries as well. So I'm in the middle of the US in Nebraska, and Andres, you are kind of on the East Coast. I would say East Coast of Canada, correct? So different countries. And so we have to deal with obviously the just ebbs and flows of technology with bandwidth. I know a lot of these types of podcasts, typically you're still sitting down in a room, a physical room with somebody, and like the Joe Rogan show, typically they sit in a room together with the mics on and they're recording that conversation that they have. Whereas we have to kind of deal with some of these technology issues. So thank you for dealing with that with us, audience, because I know that could be rough sometimes. But yeah, the hopefully the audio comes across and everything is fine. And again, um, always wanting to make the next episode the best episode. So that is really what we're on for that. The other, I would say, negatives, if you change to, if you start with video and you go to maybe an audio podcast. So say we take the audio from this and we put it up onto Spotify or Apple, is it Apple Podcasts or iTunes? Then you can tell I'm not an Apple user. Then basically, if we reference anything or if we show anything on this video, then if you're just listening to the audio version of it, you won't be able to see those things as well. And we would have to describe it out in detail. And that's a lot of the podcasts I listen to actually end up doing that. And they try and do descriptive words, hey, this water bottle is blue and it has this kind of lines or these forms, and they have to describe it. Whereas for a video, you can just kind of show, hey, this is the water bottle. And people can infer a lot of that information for themselves. So yeah, I think the biggest negative is technology right now.
Oh, and it seems so counterintuitive. We had to rely on the technology, and you know how a lot of people say, "Don't worry about the technology. Focus on the value."
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, focusing on the value I think is key, and I think some of the value that we provide is just our our relationship, our friendship, and the different outcome or the different backgrounds that we have. So if you are just starting to listen to us and you're 17 minutes in on episode 6, and you don't know, Andres is an awesome graphic logo branding designer, and that is his background in London. Is it Ontario, right? Oh yeah, there he's got his logo on his hat. And myself, I do product design, hardware design, and we just kind of started meeting together because we've realized that design as a whole is we have different mediums that we work with. I deal with physical materials. Andres works with pixels and color and themes, and so those things are different, but the design process really remains fairly similar across both of those. And there's a lot of things that we can learn from each other. If you're in any sort of design class, they talk about how you can pull from different areas to influence your current design that you're working on. And so I think that's one of the great things that Andres and I have is we're able to pull from each other's areas of expertise. I learned so much around graphic design and logo design from Andres, and I think he is learning from me a little bit around product design and some of the physical things that we have to deal with. And so that's one of the reasons why I think that this video podcast is a great tool, not only for us, but hopefully we can impart some of that to you as the listener.
I would love for this to be our one of our future episodes is talking about each other's process, like going in depth with it, because Charles comes from a background of mechanical engineer and physical product design, which is something I've always been intrigued. As you can tell, like this is a soft good, I guess you can say. I'm trying to use all of Charles' learning right now, and it uses embroidery, which is going from taking a graphic that's pixel, which was just a sketch on my iPad, and then digitizing it in Adobe Illustrator, and then digitize it again for the embroidery process, which is something I've recently learned. And oh my goodness, I can tell you, Charles, it was a headache because I thought I could just simply take a PNG or a vector file and shoot it into a program and it would spit out a DST file, which is not really the case. The DST file for embroidery takes another process on its own, which I had to learn, and it was not fun because I thought it was going to be a lot easier, and people on the internet make everything look so easy. I'm like, oh no, another thing I had to figure out. But anyways, I'd love to close out this episode relatively soon. And any final thoughts from you, Charles?
Yeah, I think as you just mentioned, there's video podcasts. I think the main takeaways are, if you want to start one, for whatever reason, I would say just get started with it and don't worry too much about any of the things that are holding you back, whether that's technology or trying to find somebody to work on it with. You can just get started where you're at and always continue to make it better. And with that, I think we will end episode 6 of the Trove Design Podcast with Andres and Charlie. Okay, we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.
We're bringing the music. We got the music. All right, everyone.